An arena filled with roaring spectators, Weiss mocking him with a cold smile. He calls the boy a mere commoner who stands no chance against a noble like him, declaring the losing flag already raised. Behind him, Lilith and another servant cheer him on, begging him to humiliate the fool who dared defy him. Weiss raises his hand and orders the battle to begin. The duel ends almost instantly. The commoner lies defeated on the ground, rain washing over his fallen sword as Weiss walks past him without a glance, his expression untouched by mercy. A narration reveals his identity. He is Weiss Vincent, known throughout the story as the villainous noble. In another world entirely, a young man plays a game on his console, finally clearing it after facing the protagonist Alan. Weiss, who lost that final battle, had lost everything from that point on. Reduced to nothing, he was used as a shield by the Demon King and died. Then, struck by something unknown, the player collapses onto the floor. He wakes inside a grand mansion. Chapter 1, beginning, as he realizes something is deeply wrong. Nearby, a maid weeps quietly in a dim hallway. The scene shifts back, showing Weiss standing over the same maid, riding crop in hand, clearly the one who had been tormenting her. The maid trembles on the floor while Weiss watches, confusion clouding his face as if he does not recognize the moment at all. Disoriented, he wonders where he is and who he has become. Moments earlier, he had simply been playing a game, yet now a woman lies bound in a compromising position right in front of him. Struck by her beauty, he stares at the maid, who nervously asks if something is wrong. Meanwhile, another servant watches him, sensing something oddly familiar about his behavior. Panic sets in as he realizes the truth. He has become Weiss Vincent, the abusive noble character from the school game Noblesse Oblige. He recalls the game clearly, the fantasy title he had cleared many times, where Weiss serves as the villain standing against the protagonist Alan. Flashbacks show Weiss's canon fate, a man who used his power to torment the weak, becoming a servant to the Demon King after losing everything, eventually dying as nothing more than a discarded shield. Realization dawns that the bound girl is Lilith Scarlet, the maid Weiss made a habit of abusing. Determined to break the cycle, he moves to untie her, though he hesitates, worried that changing so suddenly might look suspicious. Fighting his nerves, he decides to stop the mistreatment for today, unable to leave her like this any longer. Noticing an injury on her neck, he offers to try healing magic, surprising himself as light gathers in his palms. The spell succeeds. He recalls discovering the hidden healing magic buried within an old strategy guide, magic usable from the very beginning of the game. Flustered, he insists he only wanted to practice, denying that his kindness was meant for her specifically. Moved to tears, Lilith thanks him sincerely, leaving him quietly stunned by how much his cruelty had shaped her devotion. Weiss apologizes for everything until now, promising he will never repeat those actions again, leaving Lilith staring back, utterly puzzled by the sudden change. At dinner, the butler Zevis Alden serves Weiss his meal, bracing himself out of habit since Weiss would usually complain the food tasted bad and throw the plate to the floor. Instead, Weiss calmly admits he had been wrong to treat food so carelessly, praising the seasoning as perfect once again, leaving Zevis stunned by the change. Overwhelmed, Zevis declares himself deeply honored by such gracious words, while the maids nearby weep, moved that Weiss could be so wonderful. They are so touched that none of them notice the truth, that the boy in front of them has become someone else entirely inside. Weiss privately reflects on how terrible his old self must have been to reduce these people to tears so easily. Alone in his room, he vows that from now on he will make sure not to hurt these people again, starting by disposing of his old riding crop for good. Standing outside near a broken wall he had apparently destroyed in training, Weiss tells himself he must change even further, refusing to remain the same person he once was. With the entrance exam only 2 years away, he recalls that nobles are obligated to attend a proper academy by age 15. In the original game, Weiss's reputation collapses after he loses to the protagonist during the combat test. Determined to avoid that fate, he resolves to give everything he has, believing the future can still be changed if he never loses that match. Pushing himself harder than ever, he swears that no matter how much strength it takes, he will avoid the path leading to ruin. Exhausted and drenched in sweat, Weiss collapses onto a tree stump to catch his breath, only to be startled when a voice calls his name. Before him stands Milk, a Vitas, an S-rank adventurer, who bluntly asks if he is even taking his training seriously. Weiss, barely able to speak, asks for a short break. Milk allows him to rest, but warns that if he wants to avoid being mocked as a loser right after enrolling, half-hearted effort will not be enough. Weiss reveals that he used his family's connections to bring in an incredible teacher, someone barking harsh instructions at him about his stance and form. The narration explains that Milk-Sensei originally appears only near the end of the game, regarded as the closest thing to the strongest swordsman in the royal capital. Weiss admits he asked her to forget he is a noble and train him without mercy, but quickly realizes she is far more sadistic and terrifying than he expected. Later, Lilith shows him a headband inscribed with characters, curious what the writing means, as Milk hands it over, saying it is the item he requested. The word reads diligence, and Weiss reads its meaning aloud, vowing to give his best effort, even to the point of collapse. The narration notes that Noblesse Oblige is infamously known as a death game, a title that can only be cleared through repeated attempts. Weiss admits he has never properly trained his body, not even in his past life, but insists that no time can be wasted, since neglecting his training could result in expulsion or even death. Improving his basic physical fitness becomes essential to mastering both swordsmanship and magic efficiently. Though he openly admits the process is utterly exhausting, his daily routine begins with practicing sword forms, followed by brutal muscle training and finally endless running to build his stamina, each session pushing him closer to collapse. From morning till night, Weiss endures brutal training under Milk's spinning wheel device, tumbling and crawling through the dirt over and over again without pause. Zevis prepares a special protein-packed menu exactly as instructed by the young master, determined to support his sudden change in lifestyle. Weiss explains that injuries can always be healed with recovery magic, but proper diet still matters for building the body. 2 weeks into training, he apologizes to Zevis for being such a burden, despite how busy the household already is. Still, thanks to Zevis's constant support, he manages to push through even when overworked. 3 weeks pass, each day feeling like an entire month under the exhausting routine. Yet before he even realizes it, the sun sets once more on another day survived. Having finally adjusted to the physical training, Weiss decides it is time to call in a magic teacher as well. Worn down by Milk's strict methods, he quietly hopes this new teacher might be kinder. The door creaks open, revealing an unexpected figure to his horror. It is Milk-Sensei once again, and Weiss can only cry out in protest at seeing her show up a second time. Milk simply states she is not only a master of swordsmanship but of magic as well, questioning why he seems so shocked by the same result. Zevis explains that Milk is a genius magic swordsman capable of wielding 2 of the 4 great magic attributes, prompting Weiss to angrily remind him that he specifically asked for a kind teacher. Milk brushes off the complaint, promising to teach magic gently since she is a professional, though her sudden shift in tone only fills Weiss with dread. Under her harsh guidance, Weiss screams while unleashing magic against jagged rock formations, urged to channel more power and keep his eyes open. Told to continue for 2 more hours, Weiss cries out in frustration, demanding to know where her supposed kindness went. Milk explains that mana can only be increased through consistent training, ordering him to repeat the process daily until he collapses from exhaustion. From that day forward, alongside basic magic training, practical sparring with wooden swords begins as well. Milk critiques his sloppy form, striking him down effortlessly, while Lilith rushes in to heal his wounds and encourage him to keep pushing forward. Weiss wonders why someone as lazy as his old self could suddenly endure this much hardship without breaking. He recalls his past life where he gave up on everything and ran from every challenge, living as little more than a hollow shell of a person. He questions what truly separates his past from who he is now, unable to explain how he manages to work so diligently in this new world. 2 months into training, Milk gently reaches out and pats his head, catching him completely off guard. She praises his rapid improvement, revealing that every time he reaches a goal, she intends to reward him with a simple pat on the head. Weiss mutters that the ratio of carrot to stick in his training feels seriously unbalanced, catching Lilith's attention as she arrives with something for him. Lilith announces she has brought him lunch, setting down a basket with a warm smile. Watching from a distance, Milk remarks that he has probably already received plenty of carrot from others, adding that she is merely the one holding the stick. Lilith hands him the meal, saying it will support him so he can keep doing his best, while Milk reminds him internally not to forget the role the carrot plays in all this. Lilith tilts her head, confused, as Weiss quietly admits that it is all thanks to everyone that he manages to keep pushing forward. He reflects on Zevis and Lilith. He thinks of Milk-Sensei as well, who toughens her heart for the sake of his growth. Without everyone's cooperation, he knows he never would have made it this far. He compares his current self to the previous Weiss and to who he was in his past life, both versions of himself thinking only of their own comfort. That selfishness was exactly why no one ever scolded him or offered support. What he truly needed, he realizes, was a mix of love that came both sweet and harsh. Gritting his teeth, he declares that he will no longer live only for himself. From now on, his goal shifts. He wants to show everyone his true, impressive self, refusing to make Lilith and the others who helped him feel sad ever again. Until now, his effort had only been for his own survival, driven by fear of ruin and death. Standing confidently with Lilith and Milk beside him, Weiss vows to avoid the path of destruction, declaring that from here on, he will fight both for himself and for everyone who has stood by him. Screaming through exhaustion, Weiss pushes his body to its limit. Though the training remains brutal, Milk shows no mercy, setting his next goal at 4 hours straight, ordering him to keep going until he physically cannot continue. Weiss walked through League Belt Town with Lilith and Milku beside him, the bridge and old rooftops stretching behind them while two rough men lounged nearby, watching the trio pass through the quiet streets. This town marked the very place where the game's protagonist once began his journey, though for Weiss it had become nothing more than a stop for another one of his training assignments. Milku's voice cut through his thoughts as thugs shouted and swung wildly nearby, complaining about unfair advantages while Weiss stayed calm, already used to her unconventional way of testing him. 3 months had passed since his training began, and now Weiss found himself questioning whether a staged brawl against random thugs could truly count as real combat experience. Lilith trembled nervously as Milku cheered him on, promising to handpick the perfect opponent for his very first taste of a genuine fight. Nearby, a group of rough men noticed the group approaching, eyeing Lilith with unsettling interest and exchanging crude remarks about her appearance. Passersby whispered warnings about Weiss, calling him dangerous, while the men mocked him instead for walking around with someone as striking as Lilith. Weiss recognized immediately that League Belt Town carried its reputation as the worst town for good reason, and his focus sharpened on protecting Lilith no matter what happened next. Milku reassured Lilith quietly, telling her the men weren't worth acknowledging, while Weiss caught her words with a puzzled look. Lilith giggled at something Milku said, momentarily lightening the mood, though the looming building ahead made Weiss wonder if he had only imagined the killing intent radiating off Lilith earlier. Inside the Adventurers Guild, the room buzzed with chatter as the group entered, catching the attention of 3 intimidating men waiting by the counter. The men wasted no time, demanding Weiss step outside to settle things directly, while onlookers watched the tension building inside the guild hall. Milku explained that these 3, the Boudin brothers, had built their reputation on unspeakable crimes, protected for years through bribery instead of facing justice. She reassured Weiss that holding back wasn't necessary against criminals like them, revealing that the corrupt officials who once shielded the brothers had already been arrested. Milku pointed out that despite his lack of real combat experience, Weiss carried a strong determination that could carry him through his first true battle. She warned him plainly that facing real combat was a step he could not avoid forever, and it was better to confront it now rather than later. Milku admitted she might not always be there watching over him in future fights, especially if he let this opportunity slip past him. Encouraged by her words, Weiss told himself she was reassuring, though within moments Milku disappeared, leaving him to face the situation with only Lilith by his side. Panic set in as Weiss screamed after her, realizing he had been tricked into standing his ground while surrounded by the brothers alone. Left with no way to retreat, Weiss steadied his nerves and focused on one clear goal: cutting off one of their arms. Weiss studied the 3 men closely, noting they looked like ordinary punks but carried real skill, and facing them 3 against 1 without killing intent made victory anything but certain. Before picking the fight, Weiss knew he needed a plan, aware that once dragged into the alley, combat would begin whether he wanted it or not. Milku's words echoed in his mind, telling him to simply follow what she had taught him, and everything would work out fine. Watching from a window, Milku admitted to Lilith that motivating Weiss required a bit of deception, earning a scolding remark about how cruel that sounded. Lilith nervously considered stepping in to help if things turned dangerous, though she muttered that a practice meant to include backup barely counted as practice at all. Inside the tavern, the thugs recognized Lilith from earlier, excitement spreading through the room at her arrival. The men bragged about running the town as a band of thieves, revealing they had already dragged in other girls and were short on company for the night, sending a cold flash through Lilith's eyes. Weiss struck without hesitation, the man beside him barely reacting before violence erupted between them. A brother screamed in pain as Weiss moved decisively, the fight now fully underway in the open street. Milku's lesson replayed in his head, the The first strike catching an opponent off guard surpasses any other attack, and seizing that opening is everything in real combat. Even a master of martial arts falls if his neck breaks before he can brace, and even a mage dies if struck before raising a barrier. Lone Brother lunged forward, but Weiss moved before his opponent could, the fight escalating with brutal speed. Blade met flesh in that instant, and Weiss realized he had always been the type to delay tough decisions until the last possible moment. He gritted his teeth, knowing time wouldn't fix anything, resolving that from this point on, every choice had to be made within seconds. Determination surged through him as he vowed to shed the lazy version of himself and become someone new entirely. The plan succeeded, all three brothers falling as Weiss realized victory came only because he had acted before they achieved full combat readiness. Milku declared the result worth 70 points watching Weiss catch his breath after the fight. She added that cutting off an arm inside the guild would have been the truly proactive move, while Lilith beamed proudly and gave her own score of 200. Lilith laughed off her earlier disappearance, apologizing sweetly while admitting the whole ordeal had been quite frightening for her too. Milku brushed off the tension with a light comment, until Weiss noticed a small stain of blood on Lilith's clothes, the question catching in his throat. The captured girl sat bound and trembling near the bar, rescued from the men who had planned to make them company for the night. Milku remarked that the bandits had been beaten senseless, unable to even speak, though none of them had actually died. News spread that the operation succeeded with Weiss Vincent's cooperation, and the long-wanted Boudin brothers were finally among those captured, an outcome that made her smile quietly. Word of the incident reached high society, prompting a letter of thanks and a cash reward sent to the Vincent family, closing the chapter on the League Belttown affair. Weiss had trained for a year and a half, enduring harsh conditions and unceasing exercises. His aura now pulsed with strength. The days of fainting from energy exhaustion or stamina defeat had once defined his struggle. But now he appeared strict, his power breaking logs with ease. Fatigue no longer maintained him back. He sensed energy clearly and detected enemies through walls even while sitting. At breakfast, he calmly verified his practice was progressing smoothly. Learning of all four elemental magics earth, wind, water, and fire was the basis of Weiss's practice. To achieve mix, he practiced controlling each element equally, astonishing those who observed. Despite former victories, Weiss saw Milk unceasing methods harsher than any enemy he had faced. According to his attendant, this intensity stemmed from Weiss's exceptional enchanted aptitude. In reality, wielding multiple elements defied natural boundaries imposed on ordinary magicians. Even Milk, an S-rank adventurer, could only control two elements at many. In contrast, Weiss displayed learning over all four, a phenomenon rarely seen. His past laziness had secreted this talent, yet unceasing labor uncovered it. Approval came with admiration. The steward acknowledged Weiss's transformation with genuine praise, however. Nearby the praise, Weiss trembled, haunted by memories of severe practice. Weiss knelt in agony, scolded once again for enduring severe practice with a wooden sword. Doubt arose. His teacher sensed he had been secretly honing his sorcery alone. Under the moonlight, she asked a demonstration, making him with no choice but to comply. He revealed not just the four base elements but light and dark sorcery, astonishing the witnesses. With a certain expression, Weiss admitted it was still unfinished, his true power yet to come. Weiss admitted his control over the sorcery was still lacking, though the improvement was evident. With both mentors watching, he drove forward resolved to perfect his original blend of light and dark. A powerful aura expanded from his hands, the fruit of 18 months of tireless work. As the night sky towered, the manor settled quietly, unaware of the sorcery just unleashed. Inside, nobles gathered and chatted, oblivious to the awakening force just outside their walls. At the aristocrat gathering, Weiss arrived drowsy, his fatigue from the previous night still lingering. Despite the fatigue, he had successfully completed his original sorcery, a blend of light and dark. This new technique, Dark Heal, merged healing and curse sorcery into a one powerful magic. Enemies were harmed while allies within range received continuous restoration through this two-element sorcery. Thou triumphant, the energy cost overwhelmed Weiss, making him collapse on the floor in silence. Acknowledged his need for more energy practice, while the maid cheerfully proposed a bizarre solution: alcohol. Without waiting, she dashed off at full speed, making Weiss mildly shocked. Her movements caused attention, swift and harsh like an assassin weaving through an audience. Weiss started to wonder if she might be one of the secret guards rumored to protect the Vincent family. When she turned with concentrated grace, Weiss's suspicions only deepened. Weiss saw the beautiful young woman before him, Cynthia, daughter of Countess Violetta. He silently observed her gleaming hair and red gaze, captivated by her undeniable beauty. With flair and confidence, she revealed herself as Cynthia Violetta, the chief heroine of the tidal realm. Her teasing tone taken him off defense, comparing his look to a goblin's demise. Memories flooded back. Weiss had formerly been the many-hated character by everyone, including her. Among all characters in the original story, Cynthia maintained the deepest hatred toward Weiss. She was also the very person responsible for making his former self riddled with injuries. Despite her expression, her figure felt unnerving, appearing only due to ties with the Vincent family. Attending this social event now seemed like a mistake he should have avoided altogether. Panicked thoughts raced. Nothing had happened yet, but anxiety tightened its grip before school even started. Memories of Weiss's previous self surged, making him confused and disoriented as Cynthia came near. A shadow towered from nearby, threatening Cynthia, forcing Weiss to pawn her on instinct. Instead of thanks, she reminded him of his former life's unforgivable transgressions, abuse of strength, and shameful behavior. Loathing filled her gaze. Every word hit hard as she unleashed her lingering hatred. Desperate to improve fate, Weiss bowed and said sorry, honestly, without excuse. Confessing publicly, he admitted his actions were disgraceful for any aristocrat and bowed badly. Though remorse covered everything, he doubted any forgiveness would come. Even Cynthia arrived surprised. Seeing him lower his hair in front of people was unexpected. Some of her anger seemed to soften, though uncertainty lingered in her gaze. While retreat felt like the only option, a silent hope stirred. Just maybe this wasn't the finish. They appeared on opposite ends, light and darkness destined not ever to meet. Resigned to retreat, he trusted any approach would only lead to disgrace or despair. Yet her palm extended out, halting him. For a moment, quiet fainted between them. From close by, a call spoke his name, drawing attention to the unexpected pair. Breaking all expectations, Cynthia softly asked him to dance. Music covered the hall as Cynthia stood beside Weiss before abrupt danger made her shout urgently. The afternoon was peaceful as the two sat under the gazebo, birds chirping quietly in the background. Cynthia wasn't someone who often arrived without reason. That night, all things changed when she unexpectedly took his arm and asked him to dance. At the formal ball, their meeting felt like destiny, though he had no idea why she came near him. She smiled knowingly, telling him she had noticed his transformation before he understood it himself. Cynthia had apparently heard whispers about his severe practice exercise before joining the academy. While dancing, she brought up a former event he barely recalled, catching him off defense. Her mention of an attempted assault remaining him embarrassed, uncertain of how to respond or atone. In an abrupt motion, he pulled her close, their bodies drawn together in a quiet embrace. Leaning in, she told him of feelings he had formerly confessed but seemed to have ignored. As the applause echoed, Cynthia told him the dance had already ended, catching him in a daze, without telling. She walked away with a peace farewell, leaving him shocked and confused. Meanwhile, Weiss's father, Akujoku Vincent, observed events with unreadable gaze, his figure quietly looming. Afterward, a letter from Akujoku arrived, its contents both surprising and urgent. Panic hit as Weiss understood Cynthia was already at his home for an abrupt dinner. An additional letter from Weiss's father was discovered, stirring unease among the servants as they prepared the manor. Days circled back to the silent tea moment, now shaped by the turmoil that had led to it. Weiss's thoughts burned with frustration, questioning his father's motives with rising irritation. Though thrilled to be near Cynthia, Weiss recognized she was meant for someone else. Alan, the game's hero. Any deviation from the story's path could erase Alan's destined part. Weiss panicked at the idea of diverging from the scenario, fearing he'd lose all narrative training. Even something as small as defeating Alan or stealing Cynthia's part could unravel the planned events. He attempted to remain emotionally neutral, convinced both affection and rejection could trigger disaster. However, recalled his former confession and wondered whether it had been ignored altogether. Her candid remarks softened upon his apology, acknowledging its sincerity despite how poorly it was formally delivered. Cynthia hinted she wouldn't reject his feelings, her remarks laced with a gentle, teasing tone. Embarrassed, Weiss reacted with panic, stunned by the abrupt shift in atmosphere. He couldn't believe her soft look, so different from the image he had of her aristocrat persona. Memories of the original plot returned, where she sank for the protagonist, nowhere too swiftly. Knowing her loyalty when in love, Weiss resolved to suppress her feelings before things spiraled more. Compliments poured in unexpectedly, and his rising favorability became harder to ignore. A loud reaction burst from him when the servant arrived, startling the peace atmosphere. He cringed inside, believing such an ungraceful sound might actually aid push Cynthia away. Instead of cooling off, her affection intensified, muttering how adorable he looked. Outside, another matter towered, something arranged by his father which no one had fully said yet. an engagement announcement taken him off defense, though Cynthia calmly accepted the idea after their talk. Nowhere from the garden, murmurs about Weiss's personality spread among the men trailing nearby the scenes. With no delay, his father had arranged the engagement and determined the matter himself. Laughter erupted as his father's group wondered aloud if Weiss had finally saw happiness. At the mansion's entrance, preparations unfolded as casual banter continued beside an oddly placed tunnel dig. A furious shout broke through the breath as awareness of the engagement finally hit him. What seemed like a casual gathering was actually a full-blown engagement setup orchestrated nearby his back. Arrangements with the Violetta family weren't political, they were simply made to cause him happiness. In the original story, his father barely arrived, making his character a complete mystery. Now the reality emerged: an overly doting man who spoiled his son without hesitation or edge. Seeing his father's cart loaded with sweets, he finally realized what spoiled Weiss into becoming a villain. Lilith appeared silently, hands clenched, her look covered with sorrow and hesitation. Teardrops spilled as she asked him to be happy with another, hiding her own feelings. Before he could respond, she darted off at incredible speed, making him speechless. From nearby, a teacher calmly announced his new practice chasing after Lilith. Accusations flew as he was driven to confront the agony Lilith carried after supporting him for so long. A stern command followed: return home with her, or features deadly as punishment. He dashed forward, mind racing with memories of how Lilith had constantly been beside him. Without her help, he recognized he would have stayed hopeless and weak. Desperately reaching out, he shouted her identity, realizing she was the reason he ever changed. No matter how strongly he drove forward, he couldn't close the gap. Lilith only shouted for space. They raced through forest and river, her identity echoing as he pleaded for a moment of her days. She finally wept out, claiming it couldn't be helped, she was just a servant. He shouted back without hesitation, calling her someone irreplaceable. Desperation surged as he declared the engagement wasn't his choice to start with. At the prestigious sorcery school, nobles are allowed to cause only one servant, and he had already chosen. He shouted his trust, declaring he would take her along because she meant the many to him. She faltered, realizing his intentions weren't out of duty, but choice. With a leap, she challenged him to chase her forever if he really meant it. Though drained, he drove on, yelling his agreement with all things he had remaining. With a tender eyes, she swore to stand beside him not as a servant, but as his mistress. Just as emotions extended their peak, he passed, tumbling off the cliff's edge without telling. They soared through the breath, embraced tightly as the landscape rushed under them. In his arms, she pledged to stay devoted, keeping their relationship secret from the realm. Whispers of forbidden love faded under the crash of water below, sealing their secret. After falling into a secret relationship with Lilith, he still proceeded with the engagement to Cynthia, split between duty and feeling. Meanwhile, the original hero prepared in quiet for the looming entrance exam. Cynthia wondered the progress of enchanted refinement, while her pupil struggled to meet expectations. Lilith adjusted her sorcery under training, her output fluctuating before she finally saw balance. He became engaged to Cynthia, yet privately shared affection with Lilith. Now tangled in conflicting relationships, he observed them from a distance, stunned by how absurd it all became. Blaming his absent father, he prepared a mental list of grievances, silently cursing the turmoil remaining in his wake. Practice intensity shifted as the teacher ended the basics and introduced practical sparring to cause the stakes. Both Lilith and Cynthia responded confidently when asked about prior experience, though their nervous expressions told another story. As things grew more entangled, both girls unexpectedly joined the same practice group. They had personally asked for training from Milk, aiming to prepare for the challenging entrance test before him. While Cynthia already possessed exceptional skill, her drive to push more not ever waned. Though Lilith wasn't needed to take the entrance exam, she insisted on joining to lend her help. The protagonist understood neither Cynthia nor Lilith really needed practice. With the sword gave over, Cynthia was chosen as his first opponent in the sparring session. Lilith cheered him on, while people warned him not to it simple on his fiancée. As they faced each else silently, the battle was already underway without a single thing spoken. Without telling, Cynthia launched into the air, catching everyone off defense with her abrupt movement. She hit with severe force, clashing blades mid-air and sending out a shockwave that shocked Weiss. Their instructor's call echoed in his memory, reminding him that the first action always decides the struggle. But Cynthia vanished in an instant, her speed disorienting him completely before he could react. Weiss steadied himself, gaze wide with tension, as the battlefield sank into heavy quiet. He struck hard, and Cynthia barely was able to cause her guard and daze to block the blow. Her battle technique relied on ice sorcery, enhancing her speed and grace like a person skater in motion. Gliding with precision, she aimed to exploit his blind spots with swift, unpredictable strikes, But a mistimed action ended with a comical bonk and Cynthia sprawled in defeat. Weiss insisted it was just a tap, though it had turned into a full-blown counter. Cynthia, still embarrassed, struggled with frustration. This was the first days her attacks had been countered so easily. Lilith stepped in to heal her wounds with a small magic, brushing off thanks with casual kindness. Curious, Milk wondered Weiss about how he was able to follow Cynthia's rapid movements with such ease. Without much rest, Weiss was suddenly told he'd be facing Lilith following, to his visible surprise. She appeared ready, smiling calmly as their spar was about to start. He paused, believing it unthinkable to spar against someone like Lilith who prepared merely as a servant. Memories of her agile feats returned instants that clearly defied any traditional servant part. A chill ran through him. Letting his defense down even for a question felt like a fatal mistake. Instinct kicked in as projectiles rained from all sides. Lilith rushed, unrelenting in her precision. Their battle erupted with intense momentum, both refusing to back down. Perspiration poured down his features. Spotting Lilith's movements proved he wasn't just lucky against Cynthia. Doubts surfaced. In the original tale, she was a mere background character. Now she stunned him. Despite being new to sorcery, her skill with a blade and overwhelming speed remaining him shocked. Carrying back would guarantee defeat. He drove harder, resolved not to lose. A magic circle lit under his feet as Lilith closed in fast, precise, unstoppable. Powerful glow surged under Weiss as he cast his unique sorcery, catching Lilith's attention mid-charge. The magic wasn't ordinary. It mended allies inside the circle while cursing opponents who stepped within range. Realizing the danger, she instinctively attempted to escape, but the radius stretched too wide. He dropped his sword to channel the magic fully, making himself completely open to attack. Knowing retreat would mean sure defeat, she dashed forward, blade raised, aiming for a decisive strike. Lilith's strike collided with a abrupt barrier, her wooden sword shattering on impact, making her shocked. He crouched with a peace grin, acknowledging her full-force attack blocked effortlessly. The technique, created from blending dark and light sorcery, formed an unbreakable defense, absolute barrier. In tandem, his dark eye enhanced perception, allowing him to track her swift movements. Though slower physically, enchanted synergy gave him a clear advantage so long as his energy endured. Milk call hit through the breath, urging Lilith to act. All gaze were on her following action. But the spell's lingering effect stunned her. She stumbled, dizzy, incapable to maintain mix. Instants afterward, she'd fallen. Weiss rushed forward, startled by her abrupt fall. Under the tree, Lilith recovered with the aid of a potion. The support was over her defeat clear. Even Cynthia was shocked. No one expected Lilith to be beaten so swiftly by that magic. Weiss started to explain the nature of Dark Heal. A storm of debuffs flooded the area, slowing motion, draining energy, and weakening both form and mind. With Lilith's low reserves, the magic drained her power fast, making her unconscious before she could adapt. What Weiss took from enemies, he added to himself, rising stronger with every stat stolen. Allies could share in those buffs too, turning him even more dangerous the more people appeared with him. A heavy quiet sank before Weiss's abrupt outburst shattered it. Mind-pounding, he finally said the phrase he'd dreamed of uttering after his reincarnation into this realm. Before he could process it, Cynthia stepped forward with serious eyes and issued a direct challenge. She asked a battle, claiming he was responsible for her rising excitement. Practice continued with Cynthia launching Weiss straight into the floor as Lilith rushed to join in again. Days passed swiftly with harsh practice and unresolved tension. Periods blended into months without improvement in their relationship. Eventually, they arrived at Noblesse Sorcery School, where all things would finally be put to the test. Noblesse Sorcery School prepared to host its highly anticipated entrance exam. Tension rose when a burly candidate confronted a smaller boy, mistaking his glance for mockery. Before a blow could land, a peace person intervened. A harsh glare from the newcomer froze the attacker in place. Gasps followed as approval spread. Weiss had arrived. His image as a dreaded aristocrat unsettled everyone present. Flanked by two stunning girls, his entrance stirred chatter. The older pupil froze the moment he saw Weiss Vincent. Falling to his kneeling, the boy asked for mercy. Weiss showed no interest in retaliation, flatly dismissing him without more attention. As the aggressor fled, Weiss reflected on his former. His image still lingered despite years after his reincarnation. Practice had overcame the last 2 years. Now his focus was to slowly shift how people viewed him. Standing before the school doors, Weiss carried a personal mission. A boy with a bright look stepped forward, introducing himself as Alan. Despite Weiss's intimidating figure, Alan remained optimistic and encouraging. After a short rest, Weiss extended out. A handshake followed, marking the beginning of an unexpected connection. Their moment was hit short by the ringing of a bell signaling the exam's onset. Tension returned. Alan turned at his companion's call. Urgency returned to their steps as they hurried toward the test. A young woman with soft gaze stepped forward. Cheryl Elias, Alan's childhood friend, proposed silent thanks for Weiss's aid. Something about the encounter remaining a strange feeling in his chest. The memory of his hesitation lingered. He had paused before reaching out to Alan's palm. Though Alan seemed kind, even casual interaction brought an odd, disturbing pressure Weiss couldn't explain. Resolved, he told himself of the target. Alan wasn't an enemy, just the one person he had to surpass. During the written test, Weiss maintained a peace focus. His plan was small, stay polite but distant. Shortly after, they were spoke for the battle exam. Weiss's mind stirred with an unease he couldn't ignore. Fully suited, he emerged with his two partners carrying quiet determination into the arena. Nearby him, Alan's call revealed ambition. He wasn't just friendly, he wanted to crush the competition. He aimed to defeat not only Alan but every one of them. Battle rules were explained clearly. Triumph would it to those who driven surrender or knocked their opponent out of the ring. The teacher assured the group he'd intervene if things got dangerous. Several students complained about their tight uniforms. Despite the discomfort, no one backed down. Encouragement echoed from the sidelines. Alan cheered for Duke with casual confidence. Meanwhile, Cynthia and Violetta observed the preparation. For them, the exam already felt like the onset of something greater. Cynthia's grin hinted at harsh truths. Joining the school was just the beginning. The school expelled anyone who failed to keep pace, regardless of rank. Many who dropped out remaining nearby their uniforms, unwilling to remember what they'd endured. Still, Weiss recognized the entrance exam wasn't the hardest part. Even weak characters fainted it in the original timeline. As downpour started to fall, his name was spoke. It was finally his shift to step into the ring. Weiss observed from nearby, knowing the moment they had both prepared for was near. They faced one another in quiet. The rain sank between them, but their gaze held constant resolve. As the support setup started, remaining students were moved away. The arena covered with silent anticipation. A barrier shielded the ring from the downpour. Cheers echoed as Alan supported Weiss to offer his best. Teacher signaled the onset. Blades drawn, both stepped forward as the mock battle started. Weiss lunged forward with explosive force, overwhelming Alan with a strike too fast to counter. Alan threw a restoration magic mid-fall. Sorcery surged under him as he braced for another round. But agony ripped through his form. The blow had landed too hard. Gasps echoed from the audience. His blade lowered, frustration tightening his grip. His strength still felt unstable. A dark pressure boiled within him. Uncertainty turned to dread as the urge to destroy flared uncontrollably. A strange energy surged nearby Weiss. The teacher sensed something strange, drawn to the overwhelming pressure. Weiss struggled with himself as dark emotions returned. His inner self awakened, surprising everyone, including Alan. After the academy's entrance exams ended, the headmaster summoned two individuals: Savis, a loyal steward, and Milk, an S-rank adventurer. A teacher reflected on the surprising transformation of Weiss Vincent, formerly known for idleness. Weiss had shattered expectations, outperforming every candidate and breaking records across all exams, standing drenched yet triumphant. Headmaster Gills, curious and cautious, wondered the guardians who raised such a prodigy. He voiced worry over Weiss's dangerous potential, awaiting their reply with wary quiet. Instructor Darius explained that although Weiss completed the highest scores in school history, another teacher told the group that Weiss had only tied for first place with a remarkable young woman from the previous year. Milk and Zavis downplayed their influence, claiming minimal involvement in Weiss's rise, only basic help and practice. Zavis added, almost casually, that he supplied Weiss with a heavy dose of nutrition. Food rich in soy, dairy, and chicken formed the basis of Weiss's strange growth. Darius exploded in frustration, incapable to believe Weiss had mastered not just the 4 basic elements but even light and dark creation sorcery. Milk responded with indifference, sipping casually from her mug as tension rose nearby her. Fallen in her seat, she remaining everyone speechless, her drink apparently self-supplied and alcoholic. Despite the turmoil, the headmaster urged peace, noting Milk's behavior was nothing different. Meanwhile, Weiss knelt beside Alan, who lay wounded. The boy had narrowly survived. Darius, frustrated and drenched, blamed Weiss for Alan's near-deadly, despite praising Alan's raw talent. Milk, unfazed, accused Darius of jealousy, hinting at a grudge from a former defeat. As tensions rose, the headmaster asked quiet. Zavis calmly assured them of Weiss's worthiness. The headmaster defended Weiss, noting he no longer misused strength. Something fundamental had shifted. Weiss now embraced labor over talent, striving earnestly to become a stronger, better man. They celebrated as their entry letters arrived, smiling at the onset of a different chapter. The school growing appeared grand and imposing, signaling the beginning of formal education. Teacher Chloe welcomed the different students, taking charge of the classroom and introducing the curriculum. Weiss observed the students quietly, noting their reactions and the variety of expressions among them. The group settled in, ready to start their studies at Noblesse Sorcery School. Weiss observed his classmates quietly, assessing each pupil with a calculating eyes. Alan faced him with determination, unshaken, despite the looming figure of his rival. During the exam, Alan was able to defeat Weiss formally, surprising everyone nearby them. Each rematch drove Alan to his boundaries, and Weiss's emotions intensified the struggle, nearly overwhelming him. Despite Weiss winning decisively in the finish, Alan grew stronger with every encounter, proving his resilience. Frustration covered the classroom as Weiss understood the challenge had shown him what it really meant to be a hero. Abrupt flash startled the students. Chloe raised her palm, emitting a bright light that taken everyone's attention. Each pupil received 1,000 points, visibly signaled by the enchanted display above Chloe's palm. These points represented a measure that would follow them throughout their school journey before graduation. Among the students, Weiss observed quietly as Chloe verified that he based on test results. A different total arrived: 2,000 points, twice the standard award. Classmates murmured in surprise, shocked at the abrupt increase compared to the people. Questions covered the chamber as students attempted to understand the significance of the points and whether they functioned like grades. Chloe remained peace, letting the students express their uncertainty before addressing the matter. Rather than explaining in remarks, she suggested the students would better understand the method through experience. Chloe instructed the students to grab practice blades and move to the practice grounds. The group assembled in formation, ready for the battle test that would determine their improvement in strictness. A telling followed: any pupil whose points dropped to 0 would feature immediate expulsion. Gaze scanned the field, tension rising as Chloe prepared to let them struggle before someone's points vanished. Meanwhile, Milk reflected on the turmoil left nearby whenever Weiss departed for the school. Milk prepared to obtain a teaching license at Noblesse Sorcery School as dark clouds gathered above. Inside the practice corridor, Weiss noticed a small group of students gathering near him. Calling himself Louis Misant, the boy openly praised Weiss for his recent performance. Known for outstanding grades and high potential, Louis had formerly been seen as a model pupil. On the practice grounds, a stern woman asked a clear reply from him. Louis held a strange signaled object in his palm. Louis was driven down on his kneeling while the final judgment was delivered. After the expulsion was declared, Louis remained on the floor while Weiss faced the sight in quiet. A moment afterward, Weiss understood Louis had been completely beaten by Alan. Afterward that day, Louis sat by himself in the dining corridor with his meal untouched. Weiss chose to avoid reckless actions and focus only on what was necessary to prevent the story from changing more. A different problem arrived when the chief heroine became connected to him as his fiancée. Weiss sensed the situation fainting faster than anticipated, beginning from the very first day. At the same days, something darker started rising inside Weiss. Ever after meeting Alan, Weiss noticed his emotions twisting toward aggression, not only toward Alan but toward everyone close by. Although he wanted to intervene calmly and earn trust slowly, his clenched palms showed the strain. He dreaded that giving in would make him hated like the villain in the original story. While sitting with an empty tray, Weiss felt the violent urge return in his mind. A peace young woman responded without fear, treating his dark mood like it was nothing strange. Even after the meal ended, Weiss stayed strained, expecting doubt or anger from the people nearby him. The girl told him that this was the Noblesse Sorcery School, where behavior and reputation carried weight. She admitted she had been worried about him and trusted he was too kind. Lilith explained that living in their realm needed crushing enemies before they could strike back. In the dining hall, she refused extra meals even as the servants proposed more. Despite her strict logic, Lilith pledged to help Weiss no matter what decision he made. When Lilith asked if he was still hungry, Weiss declined repeatedly. As his fiancée, Lilith urged him to show more ambition and push everyone else down. Weiss expressed gratitude to Lilith and Cynthia for speaking with him and helping piece his thoughts. Lilith suggested a small coin toss if he really could not decide what to do following. Carrying the coin, Weiss admitted he had no clear view of what the coming would cause. As the coin flipped, Weiss wondered whether he should stop trying to control the story altogether. The cafeteria worker arrived and insisted Weiss finish the meals that had been prepared with labor. Watched it roll away while the cafeteria worker looked in amazement nearby him. As it spun, Weiss noticed the details on both sides of the coin, showing a castle on one features and a dragon on the else. He would struggle his aggressive urges and try to get along with Alan to avoid disaster, rattling in place as Weiss maintained his breathing and waited for the result. Alan arrived and calmly returned the dropped coin to him, came near Weiss in the hallway and said sorry for speaking end. A close look showed Alan was excited because he wanted to meet Weiss repeatedly. Weiss admitted he also wanted another support, even if it was reckless. The decision reached from both pride and the pressure growing inside him, carrying up the coin. Weiss accepted Alan's challenge and showed he felt the same way. Shortly after, the arena erupted as their struggle started again in front of students and staff. The academy's punishment spread swiftly, and another pupil was declared expelled after fainting from the chaos. In the practice grounds, a large man rushed forward in panic and rage, shouting as he attacked. Weiss compelled first, beautiful him down in a one-clean motion before the man could recover. More students were removed one after another, each thrown away as their names were spoke. By the end, expelled students littered the area in smashed positions and shocked quiet. Lilith and Cynthia counted the rivals Weiss had expelled, pleased by how swiftly he completed obstacles. In the forest exercise, Weiss compelled with purpose beside Alan and chose he would not hesitate anymore. During the clash, Weiss rushed straight into danger and stunned the enemy heron. Afterward, Weiss sat by himself, exhausted and close to his edge as the day count continued dropping. Nowhere away, a girl asked for aid while facing her own countdown to expulsion. The support ends with Team Weiss declared victorious. Weiss stands calmly while beaten opponents lie scattered. A violent clash unfolds during school practice. Weiss overwhelms another pupil with precise motion. After 1 month, many students quit. Weiss is revealed as the direct cause, having personally driven many away. Practice schedules shift toward high-level sorcery disciplines. Weiss selects demanding courses, drawing quiet attention from surrounding students. Evaluation results place Weiss Vincent at the top in every category. Back in the classroom, a frustrated aristocrat confronts Weiss, suspicious of how swiftly his ability has changed. Duke Billion, Cheryl's childhood friend, demands to know what kind of practice could produce such abnormal power. Where Weiss passed former Cheryl's magic threads without labor and seized the flag instantly. Another memory follows, showing Weiss standing over Alan after defeating him in a one decisive action. With Weiss scoring 5,700 points and taking first place by a wide margin. Alan lowers his hair in disappointment while people try to constant him. Weiss watches the situation quietly, staying composed even as tension builds nearby him. Old memories explain why people once dreaded him, after he used harsh methods and caused resentment during former matches. Unlike before, Weiss keeps his emotions under control and refuses to intervene unfairly. Strict telling follows about the following real test, increasing pressure on the group as Weiss remains alert, but her uneasy gaze shows she is hiding strain under her peace posture. Her teacher cuts her off sharply, turning it clear that excuses will not matter. Weiss remembers the original story, where Carta became desperate after falling nearby and her path ended after the following exam. Even though the previous support was fair, Carta's closest friend was expelled because of the results. Carta walks away from the school grounds in silence, making no trace nearby. She is came near by a pair of students who pry into her plans for the following exam and mock her lack of a partner. Their remarks hit strongly as they remind her that her closest friend was already expelled. Weiss walks into the corridor and overhears the ridicule, catching Carta's terrified reaction as the group turns strained. Steps forward and offers to team up with Carta for the following exam. Carta hesitates and questions why someone like Weiss would choose her, speaking they are not compatible and reminding him he is the top-ranked first year while she is close to expulsion. As they turn, Carta notices a distant person watching from the trees, senses something is wrong when Carta stiffens. Then a masked young woman steps out with a heavy figure. Weiss stays relaxed and calmly questions whether Carta is worried about his fiancée. He explains that Cynthia only seeks to be the best in the school. Carta panics after sensing killing intent close by, but the pressure vanishes before she can react. Weiss turns away and tells her he is not trying to aid out of mercy or sympathy. Admits he cannot waste days feeling sorry for expelled students. Yet falling Carta would be a defeat to him. As they reach open floor, Weiss calmly evaluates her flying sorcery. He praises her control and warns that such skill is strongly to notice. Weiss explains he chose Carta as the many efficient partner for the following exam because of her uncommon skill. A long-haired girl appears nearby a tree, confirming Carta's previously fear was genuine and not imagined. Weiss calmly praises Carta's harsh sensing ability, seeing she detected faint traces people would miss. The secret young woman introduces herself as Lilith, skilled in assassination techniques. Lilith reveals the upcoming tag battle will be a joint exam for all 3 school years, making Carta as the target of else teams who want to break Weiss's plan. Carta freezes in panic as she realizes the exam will pit her against older, stronger students. Weiss ignores the noise and firmly chooses Carta as his partner. working practice to start immediately due to limited days. On the open field, Carta accepts in surprise, and her severe nerves shift into tears as Weiss's special practice with her begins. While walking under the forest canopy, the pair discussed the complexities of flight sorcery. Confidence lit up his face as he explained his improvement, claiming the sorcery was finally beginning to make sense. Carta Viol, an expert in flying sorcery, proposed a blunt reminder of his earlier defeat to remain airborne. They neared the school grounds, where she pointed out he wouldn't need the skill for the upcoming exam. Resolved to take advantage of the uncommon chance to improve, Weiss reflected on the value of sorcery, certain it could become a blade if used wisely. Though unrelated to the exam, he asked for her aid, promising not to release her down and vowing to avoid expulsion. He wished their practice would go on even after the test. Carta paused but smiled. Surprised by his dedication, she praised his strongly work. With a gentle nod, she agreed to help his efforts moving forward. Rumors painted Weiss as an idle aristocrat, yet his actions told a different story. His focus and figure spoke volumes. Carta admired his dedication, aspiring to support his energy and curiosity. From a distance, another pupil silently observed them, murmuring Weiss's identity, as if intrigued by his rise. Inside, the headmaster reviewed Weiss's results, astonished by the power shown for someone so young. Faculty praised his impact, noting how many students he had surpassed, even among talent. Among the many students, the one who remaining the strongest impression was Alan, apprentice of Darius. Each setback only fueled his determination, working him to return stronger every day. Beyond Alan, two more appeared out unexpectedly in the arena. Lilith and Cynthia clashed fiercely, their blades meeting with equal intensity, revealing how nowhere they'd come. Their rapid growth had surpassed all expectations, defying what anyone imagined when they first arrived. Lilith and Cynthia clashed with raw intensity, practice without protection, as if each blow could finish it all. Their duels were fought with genuine blades, harsh and fast, not ever pulling back despite the danger. Such unforgiving battle drove them nowhere beyond their limits, sharpening their skills through every risk taken. Exhausted and wounded, both girls fallen, barely able to remain conscious after the intense exchange. Their mutual respect was clear, each recognizing the other's firm power. Cynthia swore to grow even stronger, her gaze covered with resolve. She longed to remain by Weiss's side, not as a follower, but as someone who could stand as his equal. Lilith echoed her feelings, resolved to grow for Weiss's sake and protect what mattered many. Their shared target was clear, become strong enough to be relied upon in the toughest instance. Despite their modesty, both girls silently praised each other's power with smiles hiding deeper ambition. They secretly plotted to separate Carta from Weiss, resolved to claim a place at his side. Far away, Carta suddenly felt a strange chill, unaware of the silent rivalry forming nearby her. Duke Billion took charge, suggesting a title of rock, paper, scissors to decide exam partners by chance. With excitement rising, the students agreed, accepting the rule that losers would pair with strangers. As the following group prepared for teleportation, the exam's first round started with uncertainty and tension. Weiss and Carta devised a daring strategy to target the top-ranked upperclassmen and claim their points. With spirits high, they soared across the mountains. Each pupil had been scattered to predetermined locations to start the exam. The joint 3-year evaluation commenced, drawing resolved faces from every class. The tag living test officially began, marking the onset of a severe and chaotic challenge. Nowhere away, one pirate woman relaxed in ignorance, forgetting a task she was meant to do. The woman suddenly recalled her target. She had planned to obtain a teaching license at Noblesse School. Living test commenced, drawing all participants into a competitive forest battlefield. A pupil was struck by a surge of sorcery, his form jolting uncontrollably from the blast. People turned in alarm, confused by the abrupt outburst. No one had anticipated such intensity at the onset. Above, birds scattered as screams echoed through the breath, marking the severity of the clash. In the aftermath, instructors verified 2 students incapacitated. The beaten students vanished in a flash, forcibly removed from the test grounds and returned to the school. Close by, upper-year students mocked the ease of their trap, belittling the first years as hopelessly naive. Despite the ridicule, one pupil cautioned against assuming all newcomers were weak, hinting at someone exceptional among them. They dismissed the telling, convinced that any promising first years had already been expelled. Instance later, they recalled a name, Weiss Vincent, a person they would soon remorse underestimating without telling. Weiss launched a devastating strike, sending 2 opponents crashing to the floor in an instant. One pupil was immediately declared unfit to go on as flames spiraled wildly across the battlefield. Weiss descended from above, catching everyone off defense with his abrupt aerial ambush. Through effortlessly and without chant, radiated immense enchanted force, a mark of elite capability. Through an enchanted platform, he propelled forward, maintaining unceasing pressure with unshakable momentum. A powerful magic was unleashed with fury, aimed directly at Weiss, who swiftly braced for impact. Just in days, he launched himself skyward, dodging the blaze as the floor cracked under. To his opponent's amazement, Weiss twisted midair, altering trajectory with impossible precision. He constanced the maneuver, diving with speed and force, blade ready to strike. The clash ended with his enemy overwhelmed, as Weiss landed with peace focus nearby. A enchanted barrier, though flight sorcery eluded him. Weiss developed a unique technique that changed his approach entirely. By fusing dark, light, and neutral elements, he created an enchanted construct he named the Unnatural Wall. This transparent platform could appear mid-air, giving him instant footing when needed. While it overcame more energy with altitude and lasted briefly, it was perfect for harsh movement. Thanks to this, his battle strategy evolved dramatically, turning evasion and surprise attacks question nature. Weiss stood peace nearby a shimmering barrier. His opponent's blade halted mid-swing by the sorcery shield. Uncertainty spread across the attacker's face as a fireball arrived, catching him completely off defense. Explosion hit strongly, throwing the fighter back with force and ending the battle in seconds. The downed pupil was declared incapable to go on. A teammate said sorry from above, arriving to end. A flying sorcery expert said her misfire Weiss had missed her signal of incoming danger. Weiss reassured his teammate, brushing off the previously misfire. She returned the compliment, curious about his barrier. While pleased by his skills, she noted the inefficiency of his high-powered spells. They couldn't be treated repeatedly. A new challenger came near, smugly identifying Weiss and mocking his previously triumph. He powered up explosively, shedding his glasses with a dramatic burst of energy. With twisted delight, he declared his power multiplied by Sender Yisi without them ready for battle. Weiss knelt as he unleashed a magic spoke dark heal, catching the enemy completely off defense. His opponent's power started to wither rapidly, drained by the unexpected technique, panicked and confused. The upperclassman understood too, and the action wasn't in his intel. With a swift strike, Weiss overwhelmed him, earning another triumph as the beaten pupil collapsed. Carrying up his score token, Weiss grinned at Carta, ready to rack up even more points. Carta looked in amazement as her point total skyrocketed, the result of their recent victories. She and Alan shortly encountered two upperclassmen approaching through the open field. A casual challenge was issued. Cynthia and Lilith stepped forward, ready to clash. Miphis falls in an intense battle, incapable to withstand the pressure of his opponent's attack. In the forest clearing, Weiss observes the silent, noting that upperclassmen have stopped appearing altogether. A sorcery bird circles overhead, repeatedly announcing the defeated, telling people away. Realizing he has been signaled as a dangerous force, Weiss grins as he prepares to chase the rest down. With concentrated gaze, his partner agrees they'll target the question and third years next. Weiss chose to team up with Carta for more than just convenience. Her learning of flight sorcery, something many advanced mages struggle with, provided a clear advantage. Beyond that, her harsh detection skill allowed them to sense secret enemies even through dense cover. She pinpointed the figure of a well-concealed third year, her instincts cutting through enchanted disguises. Through both abilities, Weiss launched from the heavens, ready for a surprise assault. From above the forest canopy, Weiss prepared to strike, blending in with the flying sorcery birds. Unaware opponents not ever sensed his approach. His attacks from the blind spot landed with crushing force. Their instructor's lessons on taking initiative echoed, and with 20 minutes remaining, days became crucial. Despite earning enough points, Weiss strove for more, urging Carta to locate higher-ranked targets. Driven by ambition, he fixated on the rewards tied to the point system's secret privileges. Privileges at the school are ranked, with C rank providing private rooms and S rank allowing early graduation. As students' improvement, only a few remain. Many fail to meet the demanding standards. No one in the Academy's long history has ever completed the elusive S rank. Carta suspects Weiss is targeting upperclassmen to break that record and reach the top. However, Weiss denies it, revealing his more modest target attaining B rank instead. Weiss admitted that while B rank was his short-term aim, S rank remained his true aspiration. However, his obsession wasn't with prestige. It was with the offer of unlimited premium fruit via chamber service. That craving traced back a year during his punishing practice periods. In those instants, dessert had been his only comfort during the strictness. Yet even that happiness faded as practice intensified, dulling his senses along with his palate. Weiss fixated on a one reward, the super premium fruit known as the mellow melon. Tasting it repeatedly after so long awakened a joy he'd idea lost during practice. To reclaim that flavor, he resolved to earn enough points by defeating upperclassmen in the exam. With pleading gaze, he asked Carta to help him before the very end. Though surprised, she finally realized his severe motivation. It was all for meals. Carta quietly revealed her family's secret. They grew mellow melons on their farm. Abrupt idea made her blush. If she told Weiss, would he visit her home? Before she could decide, a towering explosion of enchanted energy erupted in the distance. Even Weiss, usually composed, sensed the overwhelming threat before him. Instincts verified it. What appeared beyond that smoke was no pupil, but a monster. As Carta warned him to flee, Weiss spotted a strange enchanted device floating in the heavens. Suddenly, he dropped from above with force, startling her as he landed. Instead of retreating, he dashed toward the source of danger with a smile, eager for the challenge. There, under the trees, sat a composed girl who casually praised him by identity. She was Eva Everell, a question-year pupil and a formidable different opponent. Weiss boldly challenged Eva Everell to a support, introducing himself with polite intensity. Eva accepted with a graceful expression, entertained by the rising star's confidence. She was no ordinary pupil. Eva was known as the strongest in the school. Legend spoke her a smashed character, a final boss, and even a sanctioned cheater. With strength unmatched, she had grown bored of school before now. Weiss had her attention. Eva, the unbeatable character of legend, was set to leave the school formally. The exam ended. With 10 minutes left, Weiss resolved to feature her now or not ever, resolved to finish the arc on his terms. He launched forward with full power, blades drawn, shouting with all things he had. Meanwhile, the battlefield remained chaotic. Cheryl fallen while allies rushed in. Only Alan remained standing, cornered and outnumbered as the pressure mounted. Two girls stepped forward, ready to challenge Alan. They trusted defeating him would earn Weiss's approval. Cornered and quiet, Alan's energy surged, his form shook, gaze burning with intensity as a powerful force erupted from him. The battlefield lay scorched as the exam concluded. Both fighters appeared at the edge of exhaustion, the floor shattered under them. Eva Everell remained peace, her power undeniable, radiating superiority without a one wound. Despite through every magic dark heal, dark eye, and absolute barrier, he couldn't pierce her defenses. No tactic, no sorcery, no labor had any effect. She remained untouched, beaten yet inspired. He chose to stay, his determination reignited by her overwhelming strength. Eva expressed interest in him, her demeanor peace yet captivating. Supported by her words, he decided to remain at the school, abandoning thoughts of making. With the exam over, students started returning to the Noblesse Sorcery School, their trials complete. Transportation spells cast, and the battlefield swiftly emptied in a flash of light. In the aftermath, Eva stayed nearby, and Carta's destiny shifted, her expulsion avoided. The scenario altered formerly more. Whispers covered the field as Eva came near, drawing attention with each step. Then Cynthia and Lilith arrived battered, their defeat surprising everyone who witnessed it. Bruised and regretful, Cynthia whispered an apology, her call covered with remorse. Confidence had clouded her judgment, and now the weight of defeat was clear in her gaze. As they walked together, she blamed herself for dragging Lilith into a struggle they couldn't win. Both girls blamed themselves for the defeat, each convinced they had failed the else. Meanwhile, a pupil quietly admitted his desire to prove himself. His true motivation returned. He had long wanted to challenge Alan and surpass him. Across the field, Alan appeared calmly, his look relaxed despite fresh wounds. Their eyes met. A quiet tension flared, hinting at a coming confrontation. Neither could ignore. Alan and his rival appeared side by side as the tag team exam officially ended. The students returned to campus, slipping back into the recognizable rhythm of school existence. Following his success, he high-leveled to B rank and embraced a more comfortable lifestyle. Exercise settled in, yet the thrill of triumph faded as lower-ranked matches lost their appeal. Then reached a surprise: a new teacher arrived, poised to shake all things up. The class grew strained as an offhand comment stirred discomfort. Observers observed quietly, while one student's look started to shift. Stunned by emotion, his vision blurred and darkened. A quiet fury started rising within him, uncontrollable and severe. The arrival of MILK-Sensei sent a chill through the chamber, her stern eyes paralyzing one pupil with fear. At the front, she confidently declared herself the new teacher in charge of battle practice. One pupil shot his palm up as she calmly asked if there were any questions. Before he could speak, Duke Billion stepped in, voicing the doubt on everyone's mind. From nearby, the anxious pupil grinned in ease, silently thankful for Duke's timely intervention. Multiple students voiced their frustration, demanding to know why MILK-Sensei had shown up in their classroom. She dismissed their concerns flatly, brushing off their questions as meaningless. Turmoil stirred among the students. and one broke down in uncertainty, incapable to comprehend her behavior. Teacher Chloe calmly arrived, revealing the shortage of teachers as the cause for Milk's appearance. She explained that rising requests for battle practice had overwhelmed the academy's present staff. Weiss realized the upperclassmen's pride was fueling their intensity. Milk introduced herself repeatedly, but doubts lingered as someone silently regretted her appointment. From the shadows, Milk sensed the unspoken criticism, confronting Weiss with disturbing precision. Taken off defense, he stammered an excuse, shocked by her awareness of his thoughts. Without hesitation, she announced punishment push-ups as the practice session finally started under her rule. Practice continued under the harsh sun, where Milk praised Weiss's improvement with a veiled remark. Suspicion crept into Weiss's thoughts as he wondered whether her figure was purely to abuse him. Close-by students took notice of Weiss's uncharacteristic obedience, unaware of the pressure looming over him. Milk's harsh voice hit through the field, scolding people for their sluggish pace. With a mocking expression, she concluded the school was overrun with pampered children. Issued a severe order the students were to climb the mountain before sunset without rest. To make matters harder, she singled out Weiss to perform push-ups during the climb. Her arrival transformed regular practice into a harsh trial no one could escape. Each practice day brought dread. The entire class lived in fear of her following command. Eventually, even a pool of water felt like a miracle to the exhausted trainees. The boys appeared nearby the pool, confused and wary of what Milk had planned following. Their uncertainty grew as she suddenly arrived, calling for their attention with a commanding call. To their surprise, a group of girls arrived in swimsuits. Practice was to be done in water. What followed was turmoil, perspiration, and panic as the boys clumsily responded, while Milk observed, unimpressed.